I wanted to talk to you, James, about this email that you have sent to a reader. So let's begin with what was said in the email you received, if we may.
Good morning, James.
Hello.
So if I can summarise quickly what was said from clearly a reader who understands the Yorkshire Post, because a lady who I shall refer to as Margaret, without revealing her surname, she told me she takes the Yorkshire Post. She always has taken the Yorkshire Post. But she provided for my information a screen grab of the Facebook post that's suggested by a lady called Cherie, whose account's now been deleted.
And we think this is the beginning, do we? We think this is the source of the lie.
I wouldn't.
No.
We live in such times, James.
But it was Margaret's source, at least.
It was amongst those first off the line. Let's put it that way. And Margaret had screen grabbed it for me and said, "Look, there's a lady here who has a good friend," and the wording was very carefully crafted. This lady has a good friend who works at Leeds General Infirmary who says this simply isn't true, and that was that. And the payoff to the email was, "I'll no longer be taking the Yorkshire Post because you don't check your facts."
Yeah. So she's taking a presumably unknown Facebook account ahead of you, but I like your sympathy. I like the way that your understanding of the psychological processes that could have led her to do so.
Yeah, I do, and whatever compels CCHQ to pretend to be a fact-checking service, whatever compels those who edited the Keir Starmer video, whatever compels those to suggest Matt Hancock's been punched, is not nearly as scary to me as the impact it's having on the Margarets of this world.
Your readers.
They're disposing of... I look after, as editorial director for JPI Media Yorkshire, I look after over 100 journalists who are brilliant, who are studious, who are trained, who live in Yorkshire, who care about the county. And their professionalism, their work is being undermined and disregarded by the Margarets of this world in favour of Facebook and Twitter posts by the Cheries of this world, because they're crafted in such gloriously emotive language. It resonates with people, and I think we've had such sustained exposure to this fake news world that people are now looking for Disney World, I think is how I'd put it. They're looking for somewhere where they can walk through the gates and not see or hear anything that upsets them,
or even simply challenges their
challenges their perspective.
Their perspectives on things. It is a weird. I mean, you're arguably even closer to it than I am, but it is one of the weirdest things. So, what did you do? Tell me how you replied to Margaret.
First of all, I responded by thanking Margaret for her notes overnight, and I responded sympathetically and empathetically because she's a victim. I think the Margarets of this world shouldn't be expected to be able to spot and identify bot accounts in the same way you and I might be able to. And there's a deep requirement for. I'm going to make myself sound like over dramatic and hysterical.
No, I don't think you are.
I do think the British society, our democracy, is in peril at the moment, and I put a tweet out this morning saying trust is in a tangle with evil and evil's winning, and I'm starting to get, sadly, increasingly depressed, but more and more energised to try to fight back.
Well, I guess you have to, don't you? So just run us through the 5-point answer that you provided to Margaret, if you would, James.
So I advised Margaret, I apologise for having to do this and hoped I wasn't patronising, but I said to her, the story was first published by the Yorkshire Evening Post after the mother, Sarah, contacted us directly.
My apologies for calling it the Yorkshire Evening News, so that's the first fact check that we'll get. Just carry on.
And the second point was that I said, because it's irresponsible and reckless even to take one person's word as fact and immediately publish a story, we checked the veracity of the assertion with the hospital. I had there the addendum is that's not a boast, by the way. It's just bog standard journalism. That's the lowest. That's the lowest the bar should be set.
Printing it without putting in some calls to check whether it was true or not, which is of course exactly what you can do on Facebook, which you can't do as the editor-in-chief of the Yorkshire Evening Post.
That's right. Yeah. I go on to say that the hospital confirmed the set of circumstances that you read in our story were and are and remain correct. The Chief Medical Officer for Leeds Teaching Hospital, as Dr. Yvette Ode, accepted the situation had occurred and offered an explanation as to why. And the principal reason, without going over too much of the explanation, was that they were simply overrun. Yeah. The demand for help outstripped capacity. The doctors and nurses there quite simply didn't have the hands to tend to all the patients. The chief executive, as opposed to the chief medical officer, Julian Hartley, went on to confirm this had taken place, and he offered a personal apology to Sarah and Jack. Whilst backing the staff at LGI, quite rightly so as well, they work hard and they care. And that was the 5-point response I offered to her in the first instance.
And of course, all of this was on the record before you went to press.
Yep, and you can go now. So in the last few moments, the Trust has released full details of the statement that they gave to us. It's on their website now.
Yeah. But protect the Christian West with his bulldog avatar. He knows better than the chief executive of the Trust, than the chief medical officer for all Leeds teaching hospitals, than the mother of the little boy concerned. Bob in Ongar with his pictures of Crusaders on his Twitter account is. I mean, they set themselves up as rivals to these people.
There's a common theme with some of the some people call them sock puppets, some people call them bots, but they're putting letters after their name. You'll notice QC Esquire.
I got confused about that the other day. So someone explained it to me. It was that Godfrey Bloom creature who put QC. This is to undermine people who actually are QCs.
I think it's in order to bestow upon themselves a superior status to we mere mortals.
Maybe, yeah. While simultaneously deriding experts. It's a exactly. Curious place that we find ourselves.
So undermining the establishment whilst playing a pipe for people to follow their tune. Really, really worrying. But yeah, the real worrying thing was the amount of traffic that my account started to attract last night by anonymous accounts with, at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 5 as account names. It was absolutely terrifying.
Some of them are real. You've got no way of knowing which, but the sheer volume of identically phrased tweets from a myriad of accounts is clearly not a coincidence, and that is why Margaret ends up just presumably there wouldn't be so much of it if it wasn't true. And you explain to her why she's in this case mistaken. You go on. And it's a really measured. I don't know whether you've been on a course, James, but it's a really beautifully measured email to your reader. So as you can see, we went to great lengths to establish the story was true and to check that the hospital accepted as much. I do not blame you for contacting me as you have done. You're not the only ones who have seen the Cherie Jenner Hepburn Facebook post. Again, that account has now been deleted. Amongst thousands of others very similar in nature and believed it to be true, what we are dealing with is quite simply a very poorly little boy in a place that cannot give him the care he needs, and as a result a mother reaching out for help. They are the ones that really matter here. And then you do a 4-point account as to perhaps how she could avoid being similarly misled in the future. Just run us through that if you would.
Okay, and bear in mind I have to be careful because I don't really know who's on the other end. It could be somebody who's really tech savvy, it could be somebody who is but
someone not acting in good faith in their original complaint to you.
Indeed,
yes,
indeed. The nugget of the line that suggested she took the Saturday edition, which is our best edition, reassured me somewhat. But anyway, the first one was that account has now disappeared. Our accounts are still here, and you can hold me and my journalists to account. 2. You have no way of holding Cherie to account, nor checking her words. She's a stranger to you. You don't even know if it is a real person. So why do you trust her claim over the newspaper you've taken for years in good faith? Cherie, robot or human, did not offer a credible source. The words were, a good friend of mine. They add warmth and humanity to the post in order to dupe others into believing her words credible. They're almost hypnotic, if you like, with the humanity that are in there. They are not, as far as anyone can tell. I attached below a screen grab of multiple accounts who also claim to have a good friend at LGI.
Even though they didn't call it LGI, actually, just by way of small
Leeds
point.
Hospital.
Yes, it's Leeds Hospital, which doesn't exist. It would be like calling St Thomas's London Hospital.
London Hospital, yeah, London Central Hospital, yeah, something like that. It simply isn't credible or true, and again, the words are manufactured very carefully and cynically in order to mislead. I also attached for your interest several accounts claiming to be a former paediatric nurse. The accounts are all, I think the accounts are fakes, that's my view. All make the same claim using the same wording, copy and pasted.
And there it is. I mean, the two questions. Have you heard back from Margaret?
I have.
And?
Yep, I have heard back from Margaret. She was quite contrite. She was grateful for the response.
That's why we come to work every morning, isn't it? And the second question is, here's the problem, and I don't know whether you'll want to comment on this. Our accounts are still here, and you can hold me and my journalists to account. Well, we know that at least one Daily Telegraph columnist and one prominent broadcaster have actually repeated this completely false claim. And, of course, they haven't been deleted.
No, that's the worry, isn't it? Quite how we put the genie back in the bottle, I don't know. So let me give you another example. I've been whinging on them, as is my prerogative, about these fake newspapers that the political parties have been using.
Indeed you have, yes. And that's all political parties. I think you focus more, perhaps, on the Liberal Democrats than the two main parties. I've been following it.
I did, quite simply because they were the ones that said free newspaper on the front.
Right.
There was more of it. But my point is those newspapers get pushed through God knows how many letterboxes, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions, with the free newspaper strap on the front with messaging that's essentially party political broadcasts. They are duping those people who receive those leaflets into thinking they're newspapers.
Yes.
If I'd done that, I'd have to apologise and retract in exactly the same space. Whereas nobody goes around putting another newspaper through those people's letterboxes saying, actually, you might want to be aware that those Pradas, those party political broadcasts weren't used at all.
Through, not Prada. You can
Prada.
Pravda.
Pradas.
Got a Prada in Leeds now.
Well, nobody follows it up, do they?
No, they don't. They don't. Well, you do, and I sense. I hope you don't. I hope I'm wrong on this, but I sense that you're feeling quite dispirited at the moment, despite the fact that your lad delivered the scoop of the week, and the follow-up, as arguably, or in an ideal universe, would have seen that scoop assume even more capital. But you are instead firefighting the people trying to undermine objective truth.
Yeah, I think I have to spend, so my team has to spend as little time as possible firefighting and as much time as possible doing what they do best, and that is the trusted journalism that I think people are looking for.
That's the reason why Jack's mum came to your paper in the first place.
Indeed.
Final question, and again, you might not be able to answer it, let alone want to. What would you do if you were the political editor of a major news broadcaster and you had been told a fib by a senior Conservative source, which you had then published on your social media in good faith?
That's a very good question.
You don't have to answer it. I can't.
Well, for starters, I'd be going back to the source to give them a kick in the proverbials, that's for sure.
Well, then you run the